Well, I tell you what, I'm so anxious to get going back here. Oh, my mic is muted. No, it wasn't. It is on. And I can hear myself over here. I did not have a good tech check today. I was actually having a conversation with Nazarene Theological Seminary, and oh my gosh, it was so good. It was so good. I love when people's eyes get opened up to the idea of digital ministry. And Late and I jumped on this call with maybe 15 seminary students. We've got a couple Asbury College students going through equipping digital missionaries right now, and just like, oh my gosh, I think I made a girl cry, on a seminary student cry today, as she was realizing how her calling actually aligns with digital, and how she's able to scale this digitally because she couldn't afford to do this physically. Yeah, Leighton's jumping on the stream already. It was fun. Oh my gosh, that was the most fun that I've had. I mean, it's Tuesday, but it's the most fun I've had this week. Like it was really cool. And so, hey, welcome to the Church Digital. We've got a really interesting conversation coming up today. My name is Jeff, founder of the Church Digital. This is episode 328. I'm really bad at numbers. We've been doing these for so long. I don't even know why we do numbers anymore. Like it all runs together. I remember the first maybe 5 or 7 episodes, but after then it's just like random conversations. And so really looking forward to this conversation. Leighton's talking about, it was a good cry of wow, it can happen. How this woman was like realizing the ministry potential. And I'll be honest, like, I think today we're going to see some, I may cry here a little bit as we're dealing with the mental health capacity of digital ministry here. And we met Laura Howe, who's with Hope Made Strong. And so I'm going to push my magic button here, and hopefully Laura pops on the screen. There she is. Hey, Laura, how you doing? Everything's well there? With Laura, as we're opening up here. Is this the first time you've been on a stream or a podcast with the Church Digital? You were not on the Giving Tuesday. We haven't done anything yet, have we?
Jeff, I can't hear you at all. I'm not even sure if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
I have no idea what's happening. You can hear me? I'm reading your lips.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. I don't know how to... You got... My microphone's working, my camera's working, but I have no audio, so I have no idea what is happening.
Check. People can hear me. My mic's coming through. I can see your audio, your headphones. Check your, it's your speaker. Check her speaker. Laura, yeah, this is horrible.
I'm checking my speaker. Steve, I'm trying.
Oh my goodness.
It says, I think it's my speaker, but I don't know how to change it. So I apologize, but I'm looking at the bar and it's not letting me adjust my sound. At all. I'm going up top. Oh, my sound is coming through my Scarlett. There we go.
That's not good.
I can hear now.
All right, good.
I can hear now.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right.
Amazingly, we did it.
Yes, so running audio
out
through the Scarlett preamp is not a good thing. You actually have a similar setup to what I've had historically, and so that's good.
Okay.
Laura, how?
So I don't know. We made it.
That's awesome. Welcome to the chaos of the Church Digital. Laura, I did not, and I'll own this. We'll probably edit this out, but I did not have an accurate tech check today, and was not able to walk Laura through. And so I apologize for the past 5 minutes because that was not good. But Laura, thanks for jumping on here with us.
I'm so excited to have this conversation with y'all.
Okay, so I was asking to you. Mm-hmm. This is the first time you've been on a stream, or like you were not able with the Giving Tuesday, and so this is the first time you've ever been on a stream with us, right?
It is.
All right, I love this. So Laura Howe has made a huge impact with the Church Digital behind the scenes, in the past month, and her organization, Hope Made Strong. I'm really looking forward to this mental health conversation. We're talking about being emotionally present. And so, but Laura, as we're kicking off here at the beginning, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us your story, Hope Made Strong. Take a couple minutes. Give us some background on who you are.
Cool. Well, my name's Laura, and I hail from a small town in Canada. So you might hear my Canadian accent come out, and I'm going to start off by apologizing for that, because that's what we are known for. No, I'm joking. But my
Canadian
background is
bacon.
Canadian,
There's
bacon,
usually,
right?
there
Yeah,
you go.
maple syrup, bacon,
Maple
all those
syrup.
good things.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And my background is a mental health social worker. So spent 15 years in crisis, addictions, housing, case management, and counseling all around mental health and supporting those in my local community. And then switched over to saying, oh my goodness, the church can do better. The church needs to do better in the space of mental health. And so started building content and resources and connecting with like-minded people who are just stepping up and saying, we need to train and equip the church to do better in the conversation around mental health. So started Hope Made Strong with the support and guidance of a dear friend. I think she is a familiar face or voice in the Church.digital space, Barbara Carniero. And since then launched the Church Mental Health Summit, which is a digital event that reaches the world with the best practices, tools, and resources, all focused on equipping the local church, ministry leaders, and those who care in their churches.
Yeah.
So honored to be here, honored to connect and be of service and support and wade through some difficult questions and have conversation.
No, I love that. It's going to be a good conversation. Up front, one of the areas that we really wanted to focus on with the Church Digital this year has been mental health and some of the addictive. I mean, we do ministry in potentially addictive spaces, and I say this over and over again. What does the armor of God look like digitally? What does the armor of God look like in the metaverse? What's the breastplate of righteousness, the shield of faith? I can never remember what the foot thing is, the sandals, but how do we truth? Thank you.
No, sort of truth. Yeah, no.
Sort of truth.
Peace?
Yeah.
Maybe
Is
it's
it
peace or
peace?
something.
I forgive me. I'm not as good with the and I need to spend more time on it. But how do we utilize those tools digitally? I mean, I can just roll off stats, but and it was funny even in the conversation today. I don't know if you heard, but the reason I'm late with all this was Leighton and I were talking to a seminary, Nazarene Theological Seminary, like 14, 15 students. And, one of the questions they said is, well, how do you handle addictive situations? Like, is there an opportunity for addictive, to engage? And, that has been an area that we really wanted to focus on with the ministry, and working behind the scenes right now with several, different ministries on how to handle that situation. This is not what I want to talk about today, but I want to say this. Barna came out with some stats a while back. 61% of Americans are addicted to porn. 30% are doing it in private. There's no reason to think the stats, and I'm sure those stats reported are actually worse than it is. And if they're doing it in private, by the way, that means they know it's wrong. And so how do we address the fact that they know that it's wrong, and there's an opportunity to correct that? So it's one of the things that we're really wrestling with is how to address that. And so I went to a nationally recognized counseling center that does online counseling, and I was like, hey, how do we solve this problem? And this counselor, the CEO of this organization, told me, well, Jeff, we can really handle 6 more people. 61% of America is addicted to porn, and the sex addiction organization, nationally recognized, can only handle 6 more people before they're at max capacity. Like one guy and 5 women. And I was like, well, can you give our counselors? And he's like, we can't do it. There's no more. And so we're really starting to wrestle with, okay, how do we scale this? How do we get this down to a lower level, that more manageable? where even individuals, even normies, even missionaries can start to address and treat that triage. Triage is a bad word. I apologize. I'm not allowed to say triage anymore. Laura's told me that, and really get into that. But what Laura has done, and Stacy Knapp as well, who's the chaplain for the Church.digital, has really started to open my eyes on how to address some of these issues, and you're going to see some major things rolling out of the Church.digital in very soon. And Laura's influence with Hope Made Strong, and it was funny. We were endorsing the mental health summit without even knowing Laura. Like, I knew people that were speaking at it, and we were pushing people that way. And then I met Laura one day, and she's through Barbara, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I do the conference." I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's awesome! I love this summit." Yeah, it was really cool. So it's been great to have her on board and kind of helping us process some of the mental health stuff. And Stacy, is a valid as chaplain for TCD. Oh my gosh, the two of them together are coming up with some great stuff. So stay tuned. That'll be great. Hey, let's. What we want to talk about, Laura, is being emotionally available. Digitally, what it looks like to be emotionally available. And so let's kind of open the conversation here. We're talking about questions. What does it mean to be emotionally available? How can we be emotionally available digitally? Maybe let's even tip the hat here a little bit at the beginning. What does it mean when we're asking to be emotionally available? Like, not even in digital space. What is that? What does emotionally available look like? What are we trying to dig into?
I think it's a language you're using, emotionally available, has a lot of assumptions to it, right? Because emotions for one person is going to mean different for, I know it's emotions. You think happy, sad, angry, hungry. Is hungry an emotion? I don't know. I think it is. Disgust. These are emotions, but to be emotionally available is, I think there's, might not understand what that means. And I come to the table saying emotionally available is being willing to go beyond the surface. We do a training called the Attuned Listener that teaches deep listening skills. And the acronym that we use is OCEANS. It's actually developed by Dr. Jackie Perry. And it is picturing yourself that someone's diving into the deep end of a pool or off the end of a boat. Being emotionally available is willing to dive in deep rather than just staying on the surface. It's willing to have the patience to listen to the responses rather than just jump onto the next task or the next to-do list. And so being emotionally available is willing to hold space or be hospitable in the space. And I don't mean the physical space, but I mean the moment that you have with that other person so that they can express something that has deeper meaning and deeper impact in their life.
Yeah, that is, and this is interesting. I don't know, I'm not a mental health oriented person, but the idea of being emotionally available, as you just described it, that's been, I think, one of the challenges for a lot of people that are doing digital ministry, where, I've seen it's very easy to hide behind content. Churches are broadcasting that online service, and the goal is to try to drive people into the building or try to drive people into a small group or something like that. And, a lot of times the content, the connections that we have up at that top level are superficial. And it feels like we need to be more emotionally available to connect with people, to establish that trust, to build them down into the community. How do we start to take steps towards being more emotionally available, towards connecting with people? Like not even at a digital level, like even just let's talk superficial physically. Yeah. Like I meet you. What does it look like to be emotionally available? I don't want to be like, hey, tell me your deepest, darkest secrets. What, how do we transition?
No, we can't do that. That's just creepy.
Yeah. Hey,
we don't want to be that creeper.
We got this group together. We're going to share our deepest, darkest sins. Why don't you go first? It's probably not the right way to do that, but how do we do this?
Yeah, well, just think of it as a party. What would you do in hospitality and every day? Let's just normalize the awkwardness of human interaction, right? It is awkward. It's a little weird. And so we want to be able to host someone in a friendly way. We want to set them up so they feel safe, that they feel welcomed, that they feel valued, that they're there, and that they have something to say. And you would do that if you were hosting a party at your house or maybe an event. You would create an environment so that person feels welcomed and that they feel safe. And I think we wanted, and that would be what you would want to do with a friend or a colleague or someone that you just met. You would want them to feel at ease.
Mhm.
We would want them to feel that they are important, that you are honored to meet them, and that they have something important to say, and that they are the focus in that moment. They are not just a task or a responsibility that they have to check off the list and move to something else.
Yeah.
And so, human interaction, there's awkward moments, and, we often in person play on that. When someone's like trying to shake the hand or you hug and you do that little dance, you're not quite sure what to do, you laugh about it. There's that icebreaker, right? So we want to be able to create moments like that digitally or even in person so that people feel safe and welcomed.
Yeah, I'd love that. Creating a safe, welcome environment, hospitable,
Hmm.
asking, and for us digitally, we really lean towards asking questions,
Yeah.
more than making statements. It's not, and this is some of the challenge away from the physical church
Yeah.
mindset, where physical church is using digital as a way to tell you what to think. But as a digital missionary, it's not soapbox, it's relationship.
Yeah.
By the way, this is interesting. We've got Stacy in the thread on the stream here. Laura is a gift of TCD and me personally,
Aw,
and so she's the
so
chaplain
sweet.
of TCD. We got Laura, El Michelle, one of the coolest people I've ever met. El Michelle on the stream as well. El Michelle is coming on board with TCD to really, I don't, we got to figure out the terms, but almost like chaplain to the metaverse and virtual reality. And
Amazing.
so we're working with El Michelle. She's going to be at our digital missionary conference. She's doing a thing on active listening in
Amazing.
virtual reality. And so I'm really excited. Hope May Strong. You've got is it Rebecca?
Rebecca.
Rebecca's going to
Yeah,
do a couple
Rebecca's joining in.
breakouts in the broadcast side. And so like I said, we're investing heavy in the mental health. Actually, we were Leighton and I were working with a church lately, and that's not part of our network, but we were providing some leadership and tangible resources for them. And one of the pastors remarked that they couldn't believe how concerned and focused we were on the mental health aspects, and this church
Mm,
was fried. And so the
mm.
importance to kind of restore them and feel that, like, it's a good feeling to kind of get in that spot. So hey, listen, we're listening, right? I mean, that's
Mhm,
the whole begin with prayer, listen,
mhm.
is what we want to do. And by listening, we start to make ourselves be emotionally available, because by listening, they're establishing trust with us, right? Is that what we're saying here?
Yeah, I think that's definitely one way to establish trust is by listening. Another is to, you say you want to ask questions, and rather than, asking curious questions, is you're not asking questions like you're grilling someone or you're interrogating someone. You're asking questions to get to know them more. And if they say something saying, hey, last week I was out doing this. Oh, I never knew you were into that. When did you get into, feel free to go through those rabbit trails, because they usually lead to some sort of personal connection, which is that emotional connection. And so that's definitely want to be able to listen and ask curious questions. And I think questions are so important. When we talk about active listening in face-to-face contact, we actually avoid asking questions. And so because we're so reliant on the physical features, where body language, tone, how someone stands, or where their eyes go, and we lose all of that in the digital space.
Mm.
And so how can we cross that barrier and interpret what someone's saying without being present? And so I think learning how to ask good, curious questions is really important, but also I would say that's secondary to reflective answers. Questions, no, if someone walks in and if you walk into a party and someone's drilling you with questions, it would feel quite intimidating.
Yeah.
You want to be reflective in your answers and make observations, whether maybe it's their handle, or maybe it's their profile picture, or maybe it's how did you get onto this platform, or what do you think of, so it's reflective in how they show up more than interrogative, if that makes sense.
That's reflective, open, instead of interrogative. Yeah. El Michelle said questions, not questioning. And so posture, posture, humility, listening, learning, reflective answers, is that. So how do we overcome, because you said digitally, like we don't have the physical interactions, or it's off camera, or in virtual reality you're looking at an avatar, you're looking at a how do we dig into this, and maybe is there a way to learn from it, to pick it up in other ways? Is there a way to is there a strength to digital that maybe isn't available in physical? Like what's your opinion and experience with digitals?
Well, I think El Michelle and Stacy would be more of the experts in this area, because they have a longer experience in the digital space in supporting people. So, I'm not going to pretend I'm the subject matter expert in that. However, I think the benefit of being digital is when you are in person, it's easy to hide behind those social cues of the ums and ahs and not really say anything. And so it stays surface because the lack of words. But on the digital, you're required to use words. And so you have an opportunity to go deeper faster because you're required to say words. In order to engage with that person, you are actually having dialogue. And so I think there's definitely opportunity in that, and paying attention to the details, or and maybe even what someone is not saying versus what they are saying, and just being really aware and curious. I think my favorite word is just being curious. Pretend you're like a 8-year-old or a 5-year-old kid in wanting to know about that individual.
That's good. We found in virtual reality that people are actually hiding behind the avatar actually allows for a lot more open conversations.
Yeah.
We actually, in my experience, like you don't even, asking somebody's name is like the worst thing you can do. Asking where they live, like it doesn't happen. And by, she's like, El Michelle's like deeper and faster. Like the more that you're able to hide behind that avatar and have that conversation with the avatar, you actually get very deep, very fast. And even in digital contexts, people seem to be open because there's a camera lens right there. I can be open and honest with you, and you're literally in Canada. You're practically on the other side of the planet from where I am in Miami, Florida. Like you can't judge me behind this, and so there's oftentimes there's freedom to be more expressive. Now some people lean towards that, and to be honest, some don't. Some would actually. It was interesting. With the seminary class I was in, there's actually a point where the guy was like, well, I think digital is better than physical, or physical is better than digital in relationships. Like, what do you think of that? And I got a little upset, just because I kind of, that's my pain point, just to be honest. Like that's like the thing that makes the hair on my neck stand up when people say that. And so, I got the little chip and kind of went off on him a little bit. I felt bad. I apologize again.
Apples and oranges, two different things.
Yeah, but it's exactly right. There are people that will connect in the physical building, and there are people that will connect digitally. And that's the thing, is that, we're not trying to change people's minds. We're trying to do ministry with the people that are receptive to that. And so lean into that. It's El Michelle says the anonymity leads towards more transparency. That's good. And so to be able to feed on that, and work that relationship. It's interesting with Bless. It's begin with prayer. And this is our digital version of it. Sharing Jesus Online, the book, sharingjesusonline.com. Dr. John and I wrote it together. begin with prayer, listen, eat together is physical, but shared experiences, digital, virtual
Yep.
shared experiences, get to know him, the person, serve the person, and then share your Jesus story is the last thing. And so, to be able to be emotionally available, to be listening through the top four, begin with prayer, listen, shared experiences, serve, like all that feeds into the gospel presentation as opposed to, hitting somebody over the head. It was interesting.
Yeah.
Actually, this morning, I got a DM early, or maybe it was late last night, or somebody said something. One of the guys that's in EDM, he works for a seminary, and I think he's a seminary student. He was playing Population One. It's a video game in virtual reality where you go around like shooting people. It's community based, and so they were playing this game in virtual reality, go around shooting people. And so it was him, who's a Christian, and then there was this other guy who was a Christian as well, and they were talking. And then there was other people on the team who weren't Christians, and the two of them were like were playing the game where others could hear them. But they were talking about God and church and ministry and kind of some of the behind the scenes stuff and some of the, frustrations, good and bad, with the work. And one of the guys that was on the team, who was not a Christian, was like, shut the up, and this is not, and I don't want to hear about God, and it's a way. And really, like, it was the not being sensitive to where he was actually like turned him off and pushed him away accidentally. Like the two of them didn't recognize the potential, and it's like maybe to be more sensitive towards that. How do we as people, and I'm a type A guy, I'm a jerk, like I just admit that publicly. How do I start to think more like being emotionally available, to be more sensitive to the people around me? Like what's the is there a cue? Is there a trick? Is there like a mind thing? How do I flip the switch to be able to kind of change some of my psyche? What do you recommend?
Well, I don't know if this is textbook, but I think empathy comes from suffering. So I think the more you live, the more suffering you're exposed to, the more empathy grows in you. And so now I don't, there's probably people to prove me wrong on that, but I think there's definitely a correlation to someone's experience of suffering.
Say that again.
And the level of empathy. Empathy grows from experienced suffering.
From experienced suffering.
Yeah.
So the more that you're broken, the more that you're humble, the more that you're able to be reshaped, is how you become more emotionally available.
You see it in others. You see the signs. It becomes familiar. It becomes, when you've experienced it yourself, it becomes so close to you that you begin to see it in others. So if you've been hurt or bullied or grief, or any of the number of suffering that people can experience, when you've experienced that, you can quickly pick up on when other people experience that. And empathy is wanting to meet the person where they're at and extend compassion in a way that we wish we've received. We can feel, we know what it feels like, and we can put ourselves in ourselves in their shoes. And so I think if you want to become more of an empathetic person, then I think you need to put yourself into spaces and be vulnerable and take risks. And you will quickly learn empathy by that exposure. But I think there are ways to show up when you just don't know what to say, if that doesn't come naturally. There are, I walk through, you have a BLESS acronym. I don't have a special acronym, but I definitely have some steps that I would recommend. If you don't know what to say, here's how you can show up to help create that space. But I definitely think if you want to become more empathetic, then you need to put yourself out there.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I'm the acronym king, and so if you ever need any acronym for anything, I will figure that out. I love me an acronym. But there's a little bit we talk about, if we're going to shine in the light in the darkness, we need to be prepared. And this is a personal testimony from my life. If we're going to shine light in the darkness, we need to be prepared to shine that light on ourselves. And being being broken in some of this has been, at a personal level for me, it's been very hard. But I do think that brokenness has allowed me to be more empathetic, and has allowed
Right.
me a different view and a different passion, which is, one of the reasons why we're leaning so hard into the addictive space, and
Mhm.
and realizing, we're doing ministry in addictive space. B, we're inviting others to do ministry in an addictive space.
Mhm.
And C, we're working with people. We're doing ministry to people. We're reaching out to people that are
Mhm.
addicted to
Mhm.
things. And so we need to care for ourselves. We need to care for the people that are ministering with us and the people we're ministering to. And so being able to be broken in that, I think is important.
Mhm.
It's funny. I tell this. I wrote this story. I'm not going to tell the story, but it often the story led to this point. I'll just get to the point where sometimes like my experience in doing as a digital pastor for a physical church, I felt very clean. Like, I was not connecting with people. It's just very kind of shallow relationships, and I
Mhm.
was working people through the system. Let me get them connected into a group. Let me, I'll connect with them at a superficial level, but
Mhm.
I really didn't know the people I was ministering to. Confession.
Mhm.
Um, Doing digital ministry, emotionally available,
Mhm.
missions work, relationships, as opposed to the other model. Um, it has been far more challenging, and like, to me, it almost feels like jumping in the mud with people, just to kind of a little bit, where I'm being more um real with people in that lens, in that scope. And that was uncomfortable for me for a while. Like, I'll be honest, like, that was, how much is too much. How do I protect myself? How do I, there was a little bit of, honestly, there was a little burnout in my life going back. How do we stop ourselves from being too emotionally available? Is there is there like a point that we don't go across? Like, where how do we stop? Should we stop? How do we control?
Mhm.
How do we heal? How do
Mhm.
we restore? Give me a little
Mhm.
bit on that space.
Well, I think one of the things that I say in, it's actually the third point of, what to say when you don't know what to say, is offer support that doesn't require the person to initiate. So, this is like jumping backwards from a different point, but the thing on that is, but it doesn't add burden to yourself. So
Mm,
knowing what is within your capacity and knowing what is out of reach, before offering support to that person, is really, really important. So if you just a very, simple example that I think is almost silly, but if you have a family plans, or you have, a meeting to go to, you're not going to say, "Hey, I'm going to give you a call at 6 o'clock." No, that's when your family dinner is.
yeah.
But you can say, "Hey, can I text you later on tonight?" Or, "Hey, do you want to touch back tomorrow at such and such a time?" Then, you're extending the olive branch. You're doing the work to extend the olive branch, but it's within the bound. So I think the first thing is really just only offering what is within your capacity. And the first step is knowing what's within your capacity.
Yeah.
So I would say that would be the first thing, is don't overreach or overextend when you're engaging with that person.
Yeah. I
And then yeah.
That's hard, right?
It's hard, but I think you learn your lesson pretty quick when you overreach. And you're like, "Now I am agitated, I am resentful, I am overwhelmed, I can't juggle it all, and now I'm hoping that the person doesn't ask for more help because I've exhausted all of those things." All of my capacity, all of my time and energy has been used up. And so you want to be able to have the slow, only extend what is within your capacity so that you don't completely extinguish everything.
Can you hear me now? It's funny. I think I double clicked on the wrong thing. You can hear me? Okay, good. I
Yeah.
was trying to mute my mic to cough, and I think I
Oh.
messed that up. Sorry. Um, so how else do we protect ourselves? How do we set boundaries on this? Don't
Mhm.
overextend. Are there some other things we should consider?
Um, there's definitely things to consider. But how to maintain boundaries? Is that what you're asking? How to maintain
Sure.
boundaries? Oh my goodness. I did not bring those notes up, but
I'm sorry.
you had me off. No, we can talk about it. It's just casual, right? This isn't a formal lesson.
Oh yeah. We're two people sitting around a coffee shop. You're great.
Yeah. When I think of boundaries, it is for me, I have the red flags and the yellow flags. It takes a lot of self-reflection. I'm going to be honest. Engaging in reflection is an absolute must skill for any caregiver, because if you're not reflective on how the caregiving is impacting you and how your stuff is impacting you, you're going to spew it and slime it all over everyone.
Mhm.
And so I think you need to be really reflective. And one of the things you can reflect on is, what is the yellow flags and the red flags? What are the warning signs, and what is the like, you need additional support, you need to press pause, and of being the red flag. For me, my yellow flag is when I isolate, when I'm pulling away from activities that I normally would enjoy, like book club or playing volleyball or walking my dog. Those are the things I say, ooh, I'm not doing really great. I need to keep an eye out of things. And so just really recognizing and being reflective and knowing what the yellow flags are when you're starting to go downhill, and by knowing those, you know when to stop and care for yourself. And so I think that's really important for boundaries, and not overextending.
One of the hardest things for me, and I still don't know if this is good or bad. Like I want to wrestle with this, is passing it on to someone else.
Yeah.
Like I'm emotionally available. I'm connecting. This person's going through a hard thing. It's taking more energy, more resources, more equipping, more knowledge. Like the scope of this thing is probably beyond what I can really do.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm finding is that, like, I don't know if it's ego, I don't know if it's pride, but like I can solve it, I can fix it, I can handle it, I can do it. I don't want to pass it on. Is it healthy to pass it on? Is it does that break? Do I need to be better and study harder to be able to handle these difficult situations? Like what do you recommend in that space?
Yeah. One of the signs of compassion fatigue, or when you're becoming weary or burnt out as a result of the caregiving, is an over engagement in other people's stories and other people's issues and problems. And it's like the number one thing. It's, you skip lunch, you don't go on vacation, you miss activities, you think you are God has sent you and only you to that person, that no other person can care for them quite like you can. And I'm not saying like it's in a delusional way where, there's a psychotic feature to that, but more in that over respond, you feel overly responsible for that person's life. And that actually is a yellow flag. When those thoughts come and when those feelings come, that's the yellow flag saying, ooh, I think I'm too thick, I'm too deep into it. I need some perspective. I need to gather people around. And I don't mean refer as in send them away and say, I can no longer help you, but let's bring another person into the conversation who can add a different perspective, right? It's how no one wants the feeling rejected is the worst feeling ever. No one wants to feel rejected. And so, oh, your problems are too hard for me, I'm going to send you away to a specialist because you're so broken. That's a terrible feeling. We never want to do that. But what we can say is, hey, I feel like I am this person in your life. I feel like I am a friend or I'm a fellow student, or I'm a fellow parent, or whatever. I actually don't have a lot of experience in this other issue that you're, struggling with, or that you showed. Do you mind if I connect you with someone else? And you can maintain the relationship. You can stay in someone's life, but you definitely bring in other voices. There's scripture on that. Multitude of advisors. Isn't there a proverb on that? Someone can put it in the chat and know the reference to it, but yeah.
Layton's got it if he's around, I'm sure. White
Yeah.
Too,
To a multiple of advisors or something. Yeah. And it's healthy to bring more people in. It's not healthy to gossip and just spread news around people, but to know what is within your capacity, within your skill set, where your expertise lie, and then bring in the extra for sure.
The idea of bringing somebody in to the relationship, that's new to me. I haven't done that. I've always, I don't want to be always, but for the most part, if it's out of my league, I hand it off to somebody else and let that be the thing. And so it's interesting. Ukulele comes in here saving the day. Without counsel, plans fail, but with many advisors, they succeed.
There you go.
Thank you, Pastor Google. Ukulele, good find on that. If you used Google or if you used ChatGPT, that would be interesting. But she nailed that pretty quick. But the heart of this, I think, really leans into knowing where your limits are.
Yeah.
Being invested, know where your limits are, and then invite others into the conversation with that. Mm-hmm. I would say one of the things that we want to do with the Church Digital is to try to create systems, processes, and helps for people that can come along. I was talking with the church, digital church, and they had 2 or 3 suicide situations or dealt with 2 or 3 suicide situations within a couple weeks. There were a couple, frictions within leadership. There were some negativity among some of the volunteers, and there was major issues that needed to get worked out, and mental health, being able to listen and process and help them work through some of these things is important. But when you're looking at their suicide, how do you handle those situations digitally? What's the process of that? And there's not a lot of, there's mixed clarity. Once somebody says do this, somebody does that, and it's all over the place. And as we're emotionally available, we're going to get more of those types of situations, and that's okay. We want to know that, but we want to be available. We want to work through it, but we need to know where our limitations are and to be able to hand it off. And so what we're trying to do with the Church Digital is to create trainings and find partners that can help digital missionaries, digital churches, virtual reality churches like you solve that. And so El Michelle, Stacy, Laura, we're working, I would say, very hard. I don't know that we've ramped up to the very hard level yet. That's coming. But I think we're working hard on that right now and having some really fruitful conversations globally. Some partners are coming on board that are excited. Go ahead, Laura.
And I would challenge the hand them off language. Let's bring them into the conversation.
That's better. Thank you.
Yeah, let's bring them into the conversation, because we want to build community and we want to really maintain trusted relationships, right? Transformation moves at the speed of relationships. I heard that quote from someone last week, and I was like, oh, it's changed. It keeps coming up every conversation. And so we want to maintain relationship with people. And so by bringing people into the conversation, we are maintaining that trust. We're staying connected. We're walking alongside. And I think that is, when you look at what is transformational in people, when they find recovery, whether it's in addictions or mental health, the modality or the theory or the skill set or the whatever clinical practice the person uses doesn't actually make that much of an impact. The biggest impact in recovery is in relationship, the relationship between you and your therapist, relationship between you and the peer supporter, relationship. And so if we really want to see transformation and care for people in the digital space, I really think we need to bring people in rather than refer them out.
what I really like about you, Laura, is you find the weak spot in language and you call me on it. She's done this
Blah, blah,
maybe
blah.
two. She's done this maybe 2 or 3 times. I'm not allowed to say triage. I'm
Well,
not
I
allowed
think
to
that
say
was the
handoff. Like and even like it was funny. We were in a meeting and we were working through the framework, and she's like, "That doesn't. You need to have like graphical representation of that." And I was like, "Great! I got my kids. My kids created a 3D graphical
amazing.
representation. We're gonna make some adjustments to that, but it's the prototype.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
like what Michelle said in the chat. She said alongside.
alongside, and
I
I think
love
that's a
that.
great. Um, and so that's where we're bringing people alongside the relationship, where we keep the
Yeah,
relationship.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that. Um, so from the
And
church
I think,
digital,
and
go
not
ahead,
to
please.
challenge you, sorry, not to challenge you on language all the time, because I don't think you're not saying anything wrong. No one else is saying anything wrong. We all have the best of intentions, but we are literally carving a new pathway,
Right.
right? This is newly developed space. So we are, when you think of culture, you think of art and food and language. And so we are developing a whole new culture. And
Yeah.
so that's part of the process.
No, I love it, and like Barbara. Listen, I love getting bossed around. I love getting told. I love being challenged. I started to say I'm man enough to be able to handle it, but the fact is that I'm humble enough to recognize that sometimes people around me are smarter, and I try to surround myself with smarter people than me to make the ideas better. And
We're on the same
Laura,
team. We want to be the best.
oh, totally,
Yeah.
Laura, you, Michelle, Stacy, on this mental health stuff. Mindy Caliguire, historically,
Mindy's great.
like there's a number of people that are shaping my worldview. And even things like alongside instead of hand off. I mean, that's a tell historically that I've been handing off, and it's not. We want to include into the community and invite more people, and which is my heart, to be honest. But I've been saying my words have been handing off, and so to be able to shift to that, language is so important. Ukulele, absolutely. What's available in language is culture of greatly influences how the culture develops. Yeah, and with the church digital, we want to create that culture. We want to create a culture of digital missionaries by encouraging, equipping, experimenting, empowering mission work that happens. Scare it. I don't know that I believe this, but Jeff is like Mortal Kombat. New challenger has arrived. That's funny. Scarett's a fun guy. I just met him today, and so I'm looking forward to meeting him a little bit. Yeah, that's cool. We'll dig more into it. This has been great. What's something simple? Let's back up here a little bit. Let's talk about being emotionally available.
Okay.
What's a simple, I'm going to kick the tires. What's a simple thing that I can do, practical step, that I can do to start to apply this to my ministry? What would it look like to be a simple way to try to be more emotionally available?
I would say the simplest way is your first response when someone tells you something that is feely, has that touchy-feely vibe to it. Rather, your first response back to them is a validating response. And you say, hey, it sounds like you're having a really hard day. It sounds like you're upset. It sounds like you're reflecting back to them and you're validating their experience. You're not questioning, you're not fighting with, you're not satisfying your own internal need to be know more and what's behind the scoop or who said that. It really sounds like you've had a really difficult day. If your first response to them is their own words and their own feelings, it tells them that you're a safe space, that you can handle this conversation, and so that you're really hearing them. And so I would say that is the very first thing, and just to try that on and see what happens.
Yeah, that is such good advice right there. Reflect it back to show them that you're listening, to build trust. I've got my friend Joel here. Joel is somewhere in Africa. Forgive me, I don't remember if it's Nigeria or Kenya right now. I just met Joel. He's going through my EDM cohort, Equipping Digital Missionaries, right now. It's a blessing to learn new things every day. My network is not working well, but I am following up. And so, Joel, I want to challenge you, maybe as you're following up, to use some of the language that Laura's talking about here of reflecting it back, asking it some of those questions. That was beautiful advice. Laura, my question to you in this context, Joel's in Africa. Like, is the stuff that we're talking about, is this global? Is this contextualized? Do different cultures adapt this way? Like, how do you see some of these ideas scaling globally?
Well, I'm not arrogant enough to say that my words are contextualized to every culture. I think that would be inappropriate. However,
why not? Come on.
no, that very hubris. But I would think that in as we learn about culture and context, that the concept of validating what someone says is really valuable depending on the context. So, if there's, gender, or age, cultural norms, we want to respect that, right? If it's not a cultural norm to be able to respond that way, that is priority, because if we, speak inappropriately, then that's going to create barrier and mistrust immediately. However, if it's on a peer level, I think that from my understanding, Western culture, it would be appropriate. And so if I was responding to Joel in that, I would say, wow, Joel, that sounds like it's really frustrating that your network. It sounds like you're experiencing a lot of tech challenges right now. So it's really just that simple. It's just hearing what someone says and then responding with sounds like. And is it culturally appropriate? I would have to defer to the person of that culture.
Yeah. And that's, I don't want to be like, that's the right answer, but that's what we believe with theChurch.digital is all this stuff needs to be contextualized. Yeah. Joel, you need to experiment with it. And we're going to get some of that into the cohort. Ultimately, and Joel, I'm going to fast forward because you don't know this yet, but we're going to talk about it later. We want to involve you in one of our outposts, Joel, that operates in Southern Africa, where we're collecting together people that are doing digital ministry and digital mission work in the Southern African context, because just to be honest, they understand what's happening in Southern Africa better than I do in Miami, Florida, or better than Laura does in Canada, Toronto. Yeah. Where are you? Toronto.
Canada. Toronto.
Canada. Yeah. Where it's cold. It's colder than it was where I am. At least say that. But the point is, Joel, to take some of these lessons and experiment on it. It may work, it may not work, it may need to adapt. And one of the things
listening would work. I think the listening would work, absolutely.
Okay.
But it is, are you going to respond and say those words? Is what I was thinking.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Here.
Sorry, I cut you off.
Yes. Scare it. It's very humble of you, Laura. Listening is universally appreciated. That's a good word right there. Scare it. Cool. All right. So we've got some practical insight. We've got some next steps. We're gonna listen more. We're gonna dig into it. Steve, I haven't put you up here yet today. I think so. Just agreed to that. He's happy. So as we're landing the plane here. Any closing thoughts? Any other challenges that we need to look at being emotionally available?
It is really tempting for us to start to share our story back and trying to create common bonds and common relationship. However, just be aware of when that is an appropriate time. If someone is sharing and, being emotional or feely or vulnerable with you, that might not be the best time to say, oh yeah, my Aunt Sue had that same thing happen to her or whatever. Keep the focus on the other person. It is very tempting to trying to find that common ground and mutual experience by sharing your own story. But true listening is really making it about the other person.
Man, you just challenged me on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like put a time on that. Like, are we talking minutes? Are we talking hours? Like how? Because I feel you. I've been there. Tell me about it. Like I'll do that.
Yeah.
to try to relationally connect with
Yeah.
them. But you're saying that trying to relationally connect with them actually devalues what they're saying?
I think it depends on the relationship. If someone's coming to you, best friend, brother, sister, colleague, if they're coming to you because they're struggling and they're opening up to you, do not share about yourself at all. But if they come back and you can say, "Hey, how was it?" and you're initiating the conversation or you're checking back in and then there's continual. But as when that person is vulnerable and sharing with you, try to resist the urge to share your own story just for that conversation. There will be opportunities later to create that comment. Or you could say, "Hey, that story you told me or what that happened to you, it reminded me of a time when, how was it?" And then you turn it back to them. You never want to turn it to yourself in the moment of vulnerability. You want to keep the focus and keep the attention, the support heading in their direction.
Yeah, Steve, that's this. You're challenging me, Laura, which I love. Steve's asking the question: how does that fit within shared experiences with Bless? Begin with prayer, listen, shared experiences. I'm hearing this and applying it to it. Listening is more about the person. Shared
Yeah.
experiences make it more
Relation.
about the person. It's more about
Yeah.
about the relationship and spin it more towards them. Serving is more about the person. And so like really when you spin it, it's when you get to share your Jesus story that's at the
Mm,
bottom. And so
yeah.
you've got to just feel that. And I
Yeah.
agree with that. Like I've always felt that. It just was like I would somebody would tell me something to be like, oh my gosh, that's so bad. And I would try to empathize with them by connecting. But if
Yeah.
it's interesting that that's bad. Like I suddenly feel bad for like
Well, I
50
don't wanna put the
conversations in my
label of
life.
bad. I don't wanna put the
Yeah.
label of bad.
Okay.
But if because if you're having a connected conversation and someone is sharing a story, then yeah, you're just, catching up for coffee, it's fine. But if someone's like, "Oh my gosh, I have a rough day, can you talk?" Or, "I really would love to talk with you." When the intention of the conversation is to provide support, then you wanna make sure the support is directed towards the person for the entirety of the conversation.
This is so good. We need to do this more. Like I really like hanging out with Laura. And Laura was connected to Barbara is how I found them. So once again, like Barbara is the best thing. I tell people all the time, Barbara's the best thing I did in 24. And the connection with you and the influence, it's probably one of the two best things that we'll do in 25. Because I am so
Same,
driven.
friend.
Yeah. I'm not kidding. Equipping a mobilization, the stuff that JMO is working on now with me, I'm excited about how it's going to roll out globally, and solving this mental health, this care problem, digitally. This is a major issue within the space that needs to be addressed, and I you know what there are resources and there are people that want to partner with us. They just don't know it. Like I've met very few people that are like, no, you're crazy. Everybody's like, yes, there's an opportunity. Let's figure it out. Now it may or may not work, but I'm confident that we're going to find people to come in and address this. And so, Laura, I am very excited for this conversation and many others to come. If somebody's got questions or they want to connect with you
Mhm.
at a personal level or learn more
Yep.
about Hope Made Strong, like what's the best way to connect with you?
Uh, Email laura@hopemadestrong.org goes to me. And then hopemadestrong.org is the website. You can go in there or Instagram.
Awesome. And so
Yeah.
you'll be seeing Laura and the effects of Laura all over the Church Digital in the days to come. When is your summit coming up? It's in the
October
fall?
10th.
Oh yeah, you guys, you got a long way.
We got a while to
Um,
go.
and so, but Hope Made Strong will be in breakouts. Rebecca will be doing a couple breakouts. I'm not sure on the topic. I don't know that I've seen it yet, but we're excited about that and some of the other
I
things
think it's
to
about
come.
burnout, to be honest. I think it is about burnout.
I mean,
One
I
of them.
can certainly relate to that. So that's good stuff. Mental health's important, especially we're doing ministry in addictive space. We're getting volunteers, recruiting them to come in to do ministry in the addictive space, and we're ministering to people that are in addictive space. Like we've gotta get that armor of God on, and I'm thankful for Laura, for El Michelle, for Stacy, and the others that are speaking into this from a mental health capacity, for a prayer capacity, some of the stuff that Whitebeard's doing as well, and is ramping up to do with us. Like it's an exciting season. It's a hard season today, but I know that what we're building towards is going to be used by the kingdom in a big way tomorrow. So
Amen.
stay tuned on a lot of
Mhm.
this. But we're going to land the plane, and this has been a great conversation on being emotionally available. We've got another stream next week, and actually I may jump on a stream Thursday just to have fun and hang out with y'all, but more later on that. But to land the plane here, for Barbara with Hold Me Strong, this is Jeff with theChurch.digital. Thanks for hanging out on the stream with us, and we'll see you next time on the show.
All
Y'all
right,
have a good
take
day.
care, everyone.